right. So, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Gay Stuff.
Let's talk about gay stuff.
Oh, I like it.
We should sing our own intro song.
Kendall, that's your job for this week.
We
is
should.
to come up with a little jingle.
Like Oprah did in about her 8th season. Do y'all remember that? Of course you do. Right?
Oh, of course. What? No, I'm not as obsessed with Oprah. I just remember the Oprah.
Can you sing it for us?
Yes. I believe I can run on, see what the world can bring. No, she sang and she was so nervous. She sang her.
She sang her own?
Yeah, she sang her own.
That's.
It was about her 8th season.
Nice.
And then she bust out on the premiere episode with, I believe I can run on. And it was so, I thought it was Lionel White. I thought it was.
You thought it was what?
Lionel White.
Who
Is that his name? Oh,
Lionel
I think it was
Richie?
Lionel Richie. Barry White. That's who it is.
Barry
Yeah.
White.
It was so deep. It sounded like Gail had her hand up Oprah's ass.
Was it good though?
No, it was awful. She knew it.
Oh,
Wait,
bless.
so did she continue this or it was for 8th season?
It was the whole
only?
season.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the longest season of all 25 years.
So you
And then did the whole thing go away? Like no jingle?
Yeah, it was on like blooper reels later because
Oh,
she
okay.
realizes how terrible it is. But that's the same season she did an auction for Angel Network, and she auctioned off one of her white chaise lounges, and she said, "I gotta sell this because black women have no business being on a white chaise." She said, "I look like a raisin in a Kleenex." I wanted to buy it. My bid didn't get accepted.
That's the key to life, laughing at yourself.
Oh man. Well, that's the challenge I would imagine when you get that big, like when you.
Hey, no fat jokes with Oprah.
No, what I'm saying is when you get that famous, like you have Kendall's stirring his drink. So if you hear that, that's what it is. We're gonna
It's
keep
really
it in.
annoying.
It's water.
Yes, his water with double water with ice.
Mineral water.
Well, if you didn't have tiny straws the size of hair follicles.
But
Why are we using straws anyways?
yes,
You know
Well,
how I feel.
because
You know how I
last
feel about
week
straws.
I was gulping it down, and y'all complained about that.
'Cause you were like,
gulping. Gays complaining.
I
about
would rather
gulping?
have you gulping than using a straw.
Excuse me, I have a boyfriend. Thank you.
Tony. There we go. Tony the single.
Environmentally
We'll
friendly.
buy reusable straws. Yeah.
Or none at all.
Or none at all. Okay.
Let's go minimalist here.
Yes.
Let's just not drink anything and just be dehydrated.
Well, let's not get
until we
crazy.
die.
Let's like we'll just drink air.
Let's not get crazy here.
Let's not get crazy. What were we talking about? Oprah? Yeah, we went off on that tangent, but I think
Well, no, we're talking about Kendall's going to write us a jingle for next
yes.
week. And he's going to sing it every week.
In the
the
voice
tune
of Oprah.
No, it needs to be something more fun and poppy.
Feminine.
Yeah.
Fun and poppy, as in our pump up music today was Britney Spears a la 2004. When was
Three.
that? 2003.
Yes.
Oh, she did that duet with Madonna when they were doing that thing.
When they kissed.
Yeah, they kissed on MTV. That was a big, I remember watching that on
That
MTV.
was a big deal.
I was like, and then poor Christina Aguilera got no love.
Right, they cut away.
Yeah.
You know who's the most mad about that whole segment is Christina Aguilera.
Is she still mad about it?
Well, because they cut away right
Yeah.
as she went making out with.
I bet you if she
Madonna.
still would have been blonde, they would have kept it. But at that point, she had the black hair, so she was like,
No, they knew, the producers knew what they were doing. They had Britney be first because they knew she was going to make out with Britney, and then they needed the crowd reaction because they went straight to Justin Timberlake, who just broke up with her about a year earlier because she slept with Fred Durst.
was that what happened?
Mhm,
I
yep.
thought that was Fred Durst slept with her and Christina Aguilera?
Yeah.
Dang, those early 2000s were something.
It's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible. So this week, we're supposed to be talking about the week that happened from June. My notes are in front of
Oh,
me.
God.
June. Bear with me. June the 16th through 22nd.
We think.
That's the week that was, and we'll hit on topics such as when Barack Obama signed an executive order to grant same-sex benefits to federal employees. Partially, we'll get into that. We'll talk about a book that was written about Princess Di. That'll close out, and then the middle of our discussion, we will talk about a topic that is around Sally Ride, our astronaut that went into space, or was supposed to go into space.
Why did you get so sad at the end of that? She went into space. Were you going to say vagina?
Did she make it into space?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
she
not the
did.
one
Oh,
that died.
Save it for the- save it
Yeah,
for
you're
the-
right. You're right.
Let's
Oh my.
just spoil the entire
my
podcast.
okay, that's why. That's why I
that
said it.
is-
She went into space.
That's
Okay.
a little hint to
Okay.
what we're going to talk about.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, there we go. So that's what we're going
Should've
to
been
talk
her.
about. Before we get into too much business, the week, how was it?
My week was good. Flew by.
Yeah?
Nothing major. Yeah.
Nothing major. That corporate
Long,
life.
uneventful.
Long and uneventful. We had a fun week. Spencer broke his butt this week.
I heard about that. Why'd you do
Yeah.
that to him?
I
It was
didn't
you,
do it.
wasn't
No,
I
he
heard
was.
your neighbors complain when it happened. They're like, it's too loud.
They wish you were there, but
Your
Unfortunately,
neighbor's like, can I get some of that?
this is not due to any events that led to a Red Lobster
Or-
dinner.
Ooh. Oh,
Which
I thought you were
Beyonce,
gonna say Rosebud.
Beyonce with her, I think moms might listen to this, so maybe I'll keep it clean. But if you do things right, you go to Red Lobster. My point is,
Will
none
you
of that was
elaborate on
involved.
that?
What
For
is it?
Yolanda, she might be listening.
She does. I told her not to listen. Not to listen.
The intern's mom, Kathy.
Spence's mom listens, and
Our
yeah,
agent's
Kathy, if you're listening,
mother.
call in.
He's not the intern.
he's our agent. But he didn't know. Nothing like that. Nothing untoward. Is that the proper thing to say? Nothing naughty. He was sitting, as one does, as a content creator and podcaster does. So he was sitting all day in these new chairs. Audio engineer that Kendall gave us, and that I guess maybe we bought when we were together, or you bought them afterwards. Anyways,
You didn't pay for
these-
much. So.
these chairs are very hard, and Spence was sitting on them, and I think he aggravated a disc in his tailbone. So the nights have
All
been
right,
fun
enough
because
about his fistula.
he keeps twisting and turning all night, and
Well, that's a
we both
normal
stay
night.
up, but that's all right. We're for that.
Do you have a heating pad?
He's got a heating pad. He's got a cooling pad. We're gonna make sure he gets right soon, though. He's
With
got
Jesus.
lots of ibuprofen. I asked him if we wanted to get him any. His mom's a big proponent because of his grandmother in Canada, where
Hard
it's all
drugs.
no, like CBC. Is that what this
Oh,
cannabis?
CBD.
Yeah.
He said CBC.
What is it called?
Congressional Black Caucus.
What is it called?
CBD.
Congressional Black
CBD.
Caucus.
CBD. Oh, okay.
CBC is the Canadian broadcast.
Yeah, I asked him if he wanted any Canadian broadcasting company. That usually cheers him up. But no, I meant the cannabis.
okay.
But yeah, he said he declined. No, I mean not
like, "I'll just
whatever
tough it out."
not real stuff. The
So he
just
hates his homeland.
I think the real stuff would be great, anyways. I mean,
Yeah. Well, then I asked him, "Hey, do you want me to score you some
I'm pro
stuff from one of my
legalization.
family
Okay.
members?" And then
Once again, Kathy,
he
if you're
declined
listening,
because
call
he's
in.
not into drugs. He says no to drugs. Although Nancy Reagan was around way before he was around, he says says no to drugs. So, where do we go?
Yet she was addicted to barbiturates, according to her daughter in her autobiography.
Oh, Nancy.
Mhm, She was
Oh,
addicted to drugs.
the juice, huh? All right. Well, that's cool.
Let's not say Nancy and juice in the same sentence.
They were
Nancy
around at the same
juice.
time.
Although I did have a crush on Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
You did
I did.
physically or his personality?
All of it.
The whole thing.
He was okay. When he was young, he was very handsome. Although there's some topless pictures of
I
him.
thought George Bush Jr. was cute when he was younger.
W.
I thought he was cute, like when he first ran for president.
He just
and when he was
seems
younger.
nasty though.
Ew,
Like he would
Tony.
be, like he
I
would be
mean-
dirty draws and
Wow.
throw up throw up on himself a week ago and he didn't find it until.
Well, he
somebody-
I'm
he
just
probably
talking
did
about
that when before he was 40 and when
Well,
he
it
was
happens
alcoholic.
sometimes to us.
Oh, he was a mess when he was younger.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was a mess when he was older too.
I heard that he did start drinking again during his presidency.
What?
Towards the end, yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I
Did
didn't
he
know that.
Okay,
so stressed out?
Oh.
his he also embraces how stupid the world thinks he is, because his presidential library is having a meeting this week, like a interview with him about strategy, and they're interviewing him and they're calling it the strategist. Instead
Oh
of
my God.
strategist, because he knows he's that stupid.
Yeah.
Oh,
Strategery.
strategery.
We love Bush.
Do we now? Yes, good old Bush. Luckily, though, I guess we can segue then into some of our topics this week. Because after Bush came Obama. So what my topic this week is to talk about an executive order he passed back in 2009. Let's harken back to 2009, 10 years ago. What sort of fun emotions come up when you think about, the top song at the time, Boom Boom Pow, Fergie with that
Rocket My Style.
Oh,
Yeah.
now her top song is the national anthem at the
Oh,
NBA games.
I'm so 3,000. Wait, I'm so
2,000 and
3,000
late.
Yeah, I'm so 3,000 and great. You're so 2,000 and late.
2008.
2000 and
All right,
no,
well, I
she's
guess it wasn't that popular.
well. The song came out in 2009. I did the fact check. Yeah, I'm just saying. But yeah, so that was bumping. Gaga was popular. Obama was president. The economy was free falling.
Yes.
I just did a blog today about the unemployment rate. It's at like 3.6. So of course Trump likes to sing all the praises. I'm getting fact checked. Fact check it again, girl.
3008.
All right.
So 2008.
All right. Thank you. Thank
Don't
you,
tell me
Spencer.
that.
Our
Okay.
agent should be a fact checker for
No.
CNN.
Graduated high school.
Yes.
This is the intern.
Yeah. I know.
Talking to
The
you like
agent.
Yeah. The agent. Where was I? Yeah. So the economy was in free fall. Obama was just president, and then this week in history, so June 17, 2009, the Obama administration released a memo with the subject federal benefits and non-discrimination, and basically this was his executive order that said, hey, I've been working with the Secretary of State and the Office of Personnel Management, and we found some ways that we can actually extend some benefits to same-sex to employees, with government employees, and those overseas, government employees overseas, and provide some same-sex benefits. This was not an all-in same-sex benefits. This was basically employees could take off leave to take care of their same-sex partner, and for those
Ones that worked for the federal government,
yes,
right?
yes, and for those that were going overseas, they could take their partner, and their partner would be factored into their relocation benefits, right? Which we can attest, Kendall, when that would have been nice when we moved from Virginia to Texas with my former employer, because they actually were going to consider us for a moment. We went through such BS when we were relocating from Virginia to Texas, because
Can you say the company?
well, a little aside. No, I don't want to. But they
Blast.
they originally told me, yes, we can include him and we can ship his car, which was, we wanted to ship his car versus mine because his car was smaller, and we were going to put the dogs in there, so we thought we wanted more space. Anyways, we're all excited because we get to take the bigger car down and drive it, and then they're at the last minute they're saying, oh, you guys aren't married, sorry, we can't do that. And then they also, which also impacted like the financial, like we could have got more money had they extended those benefits like they said they were originally. But all that said is, when I was trying to sell the house, they made him sign all these documents, so they wouldn't recognize like our partnership. But when I was trying to sell the house, they're like, well, he needs to sign some stuff, and that.
Microphone's further away from the microphones because I can hear the buzz when they pull something from the internet.
Mine's on silent.
It's
Oh.
still, when you get a signal into it, it interferes with the mic.
Did you pause it, or where? I
I'm
mean,
still going on.
okay.
It.
So yeah, so they would have benefited from a financial standpoint, and it would have also helped us in terms of our moving. But they, like I said, they didn't. They put me through the ringer when I was trying to sell the house because they wanted him to sign all these
Well,
documents.
now what did they do? What does that company do?
Now,
Now,
so we
are they legally required to?
so the company always maintained that they would do what the government required them to do. So so this ordinance and
And they bragged about it, like
Well-
they tried to spin that into being
Yeah.
like.
So the
gay
ordinance,
friendly.
did it also apply to government contractors?
No, so
Oh.
that didn't take effect. So my former employer didn't take any action on that until 2013 when DOMA was overturned or overruled or whatever.
Okay.
So that's when they were like, okay, so we have to recognize marriages wherever they are.
That was 2015.
No, 2015 was it was a right for everyone to get married. Like, so 2013
it.
basically
Yeah,
said
yeah.
DOMA left it up to the states, and
Yeah.
then
Right. Okay, got
2015 was
Yeah.
everyone can get married. So right. So we'll talk about those in the coming weeks. But anyways, the 2009 ordinance was just for some benefits for federal workers, and what do you think the reaction was from the community?
Well, I'm sure it felt groundbreaking at the time, but in hindsight, it's like, dang, you take whatever scraps you can get.
I'm sure it was mixed. I'm sure gay people were like, okay, it's something, but I'm pretty sure it also had backlash, right? From
Well, I
the
mean,
other
so
side.
what was your take? You guys were of adult
Well,
mind
I
in 2009.
I wonder if that was before the giant gay march. I think it was the biggest gay march ever, which was in 2009. We
No.
actually lived in.
It would have been after, because so we lived there in the fall of 2009.
Oh,
This
okay.
was June.
Well, what I'm thinking about is, what was it, 2010? The gays were like finally, after 8 years of George W. Bush.
Oh, that's right. The big gay march in D.C.
Yeah.
I remember. I didn't go.
Now
I
we
remember
have a
this, yeah.
Democrat, and now we've been giving them money, and we've been voting loyally. Like,
Yeah.
where are the results for that? So the gays were kind of like, all right, we're going to march because you're not listening to us. You're taking our money and our votes and whatever. So there was a huge march. I was actually there.
Is that when you were
I
famous?
bet you.
Yeah, I
were.
was so famous. I was the first person in the row because I didn't really feel like marching. So I was the first person at the event, like at the police barricades. And Lady Gaga was there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And they had the cast of Hair. Is it Hairspray?
Hairspray.
Hair. Yeah. Come and sing,
Can't
and
help you.
it was actually a really good event. Very entertaining, because I was there for the entertainment.
Right.
But it was mostly about, this was like in 2010, like, okay, Obama, give us what you've
I
been
think a
promising
lot of people
us.
also had issues with the HRC at that time because they had been giving them money and they built this really nice new building in D.C., but nothing had happened. And they always said, oh, it's a Republican Congress or Republican administration.
Full of glory holes, yeah.
Yeah, but then it's like,
Full of glory.
okay.
I thought you said loopholes, and then I realized you just said glory holes. Nice.
Not in the women's room, though.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it was mixed reviews. I mean, mixed reception in terms of the LGBT community at the time. So just prior to that, so like a week or two before that, there was a case going through the Supreme Court or through the courts and trying to get up to the Supreme Court regarding DOMA. And so the Obama administration, just a few weeks prior to them putting out this this executive order to grant some same-sex benefits, they released an opinion to the court. Is that what it's called? They were basically siding with DOMA, saying, hey, look, DOMA has been a long-standing thing, and heterosexual marriage has been long established by society. So, and DOMA is also a neutral law. And so the HRC president actually wrote this this strongly worded letter to the president Obama, and saying, "Hey, this was not, you just took our votes and our money, and you're not making any progress. And not only are you not making any progress, but you just put a voice in favor of DOMA."
Yeah.
And so, of course, the Obama administration was like, "Well, that this is just standard procedure.
This is the argument that actually you and I have had before about incrementalism, to where are you going to like be happy and praise and cheerlead incrementalism? Like, you're going to take what we give you and you're going to be happy with it?
Yeah.
And it's better than what the Republicans would do? Or are you going to be like fighting for, no,
I want the full.
you need to fight harder. You're just trying to shut me up.
But what do you do when the votes aren't there?
In other words, Clinton with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, that was a complete cop-out. And when he signed Defensive Marriage Act. And he didn't sign it as someone that said, I really disagree with it. He agreed with it wholeheartedly.
No, okay, I'm getting my stories mixed up. But Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell is he didn't want that. He made a mistake in an interview saying, yeah, we're going to let gays serve. And it was right in the beginning of his presidency. It became like the topic. The news media would not let it go. So to shut up the media and to please both sides, he said, oh, okay, well, we'll come up with our new thing. We'll say, you can be gay, but just don't tell anybody.
He didn't have the votes, though. If you look at the
you don't
history,
need a vote as the commander in chief. You need the votes in the Congress to solidify it in law, but you don't need to do it to say, as the commander in chief, I'm issuing an executive order and saying the gays are now allowed to serve. So in other words, there was no courage on that behalf. He fell back on his what many politicians have done in the past, which is, we don't have the votes, sorry, so I'm not going to be...
And I feel they also need to get reelected, right? And that's, I mean, I'm not saying in favor, but that's a lot of their decision making, right? they don't want to offend too many people because they have to run for re-election.
Of course, it's called politics.
Well, I mean, there's part of it, but it's like, again, how much? I mean, the same thing with the Pelosi today with President Trump. I mean, she doesn't have the votes to impeach. On principle, you would say, I think both sides would argue, if a commander in chief does all these things wrong, then this would be cause for impeachment. Like the Republicans, if this was Barack Obama, Boehner and McConnell would have filed for. I mean, they would have put
Of course.
court press, right? If Obama was doing what Trump does, but Pelosi is being, championed as being smart and wise from a political standpoint because she knows she doesn't have the votes. So why
And
go
I
through
think
this?
she just doesn't want it to be a big issue that distracts from other stuff. I
Right.
think their sole focus is on 2020.
And I agree, right? I mean, I think there's a strong principle, Kendall. You're right that you need to stand up, but at some point, like, what do you do? I mean, Obama
Well, my
was.
point more so is saying the atmosphere of 2010 was like, and literally in this march I was talking about, an activist stood up and was like, we gave our money to Bill Clinton, and he came up with this BS, don't ask, don't tell, and he did this and that. He literally took our money. So part of the reason they had that march, and because it was so well attended, is because, look, we finally have a Democratic president for the first time in 8 years. We were promised a lot in the previous Democratic administration, and now we're going to hold them accountable, and we have the right to do that, as any other voting group could.
Yeah, and Obama didn't just. I mean, he was all in, right? Well, he was when he was a candidate.
not all
When
in,
he was a
no.
candidate, he was he opposed same-sex marriage, but he was for domestic partnerships and all the benefits afforded to that. And he
I feel
wanted equal
early on
benefits.
in his candidacy and presidency, he was a lot more toe the line. He didn't really have a stance on not only gay marriage or gay issues, but on a lot of issues. I feel he was very.
Well, no,
like,
I mean he
toe the line.
he campaigned for repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, repealing DOMA. Like those were things that he were part of his platform, which is why the LGBT community was in favor of him. He was not for same-sex marriage, but he was for domestic partnerships. And he was saying, hey, if you're in a legally recognized domestic partnership, you should get all the same benefits as a same-sex couple. And so that's what he was for.
Cop out, compromise.
Yeah, well, yeah.
One thing that I do remember, I don't remember that as much as I remember when he had an executive order where if you get any kind of Medicaid funding, you can't discriminate. So, for example, if my partner's in the hospital, they can say, "Oh, family only, you're not family." But he had an executive order where it's like, "Well, not if you have Medicaid funding, you have to let them in." And I remember that a lot more vividly, and I remember when that happened, because I was getting my master's at the time, and there was a lot of
He went to grad school.
straight people that I thought were pretty bigoted, and it was kind of interesting because when it was in that light where, oh my God, your partner couldn't have visited you in the hospital, and it's like, well, no, not if your family or the hospital doesn't want them to. So it's kind of interesting how things like that have more of an impact, I guess, on people's perceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a whole part of this movement, right? I don't even call it a movement. It's like us being out and very visible to our straight friends. It's showing, hey, these sort of laws that you think don't have any impact on you, they have impact on me, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's a big deal, right? So I think that was, to me, like around 2009. It was important for me to also be out at work because I knew that I was fairly well respected by my peers. I don't know about my management, but that I had some good standing, and so I wanted to not be in the closet on that. I wanted to talk about my relationship, not overtly, but just not hide anything, so that folks could see how much of a boring life we led together. But I mean, all the fun stuff and the mundane stuff, right? I mean,
Yep.
we weren't that crazy,
Not
Like
yet.
you are now.
no, yeah, not any crazier than anyone else I knew. So, but yeah, I think there was mixed reaction though. I mean, so looking back at this executive order when it was passed, right? It was a good step forward. It was incremental. The LGBT community was not overly thrilled with it. I mean, in fact, some employees were like, this isn't anything new. Obama maintained, hey, no, now this is this is my executive order. So whereas some employees would have received this benefit, government employees would have received it because they had a good supervisor. He's saying, look, it doesn't matter about supervisor.
So say it again. He issued an executive order that allowed
some same-sex some benefits to same-sex couples. So it wasn't all. So healthcare was not on the table, and the argument, interesting, like healthcare wasn't on the table because DOMA didn't allow them to do that. So folks were upset about that. They're like, we want all in, like, not this incremental stuff. We want healthcare too.
Yeah.
But I do understand both sides, to where it's like, we'll take anything we can get. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging us as human beings. Thank you for caring about, all that kind of stuff. I get it.
Then it's also
and I also understand the other side, which is like, well, damn,
This is all
is
we
that
get,
all?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And you do it in June?
Well, because it was two things, though, right? It was not only, again, weeks prior, it was like his administration filed a briefing on behalf of DOMA saying DOMA's okay, and then a couple weeks later they passed this.
See, that's what I mean. Where I feel he towed the line.
Right,
Yeah.
and then he said, "But I want to overturn DOMA," right? Which is, it was he was towing the line. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, you can't. I mean, like Trump's learning, you can't just say I'm going to do this, right? You need to involve Congress to pass these laws, right? So, just because you say you want the law passed doesn't mean it's going to get passed, right? Which is the whole nature of politics, right? You got to.
That's why you use executive order, and I know that's controversial, but
it's getting used more and more and more.
Yeah, but
especially if you're commander in chief.
Well, you use executive order though, and you're finding out what Obama is now finding out with Trump. You can overturn it.
Yep.
You can, and so it's only valid for it's not
8
long
years,
standing.
yeah.
So that's why, I mean, these guys need to do better job. And the electorate right now isn't in favor. It hasn't been since Obama. Like, the electorate's not in favor of necessarily you compromising, because Obama was like, we're going to do healthcare and that's it. And then everything, he wasn't whining and dining like Clinton was. I mean, Clinton, for all the, the crap that goes with his presidency, I mean, he was a masterful politician in terms of how he was able to.
But Republicans didn't like him.
No,
that's a whole misnomer about his presidency, is that he had dinners with Republicans and therefore they were willing to work with him. No, if you listen to Republicans, he was giving them what were classic Republican moderate positions, and they couldn't vote against it. I mean, a lot of his big things, like, well, first of all, NAFTA was Bush's baby that he had signed, that he had passed. But the school uniforms and the making kids have to be with a parent a person over 17 to see a rated R movie, and making those little ratings on the TV screen during television, like, those were all conservative
And also video games,
family
right?
values, things. So what Republicans going to vote against that? So, and also his economic policies were very Republican. Slash regulation, make it easier for banks to lend.
That is a good point on the bank.
He had just as much to do. We're getting off topic, which is fine.
With the
But he
financial
had
crisis.
just as much to do with the financial crash as Republicans. Republicans didn't stop him because they didn't want to. They didn't change the policies during Bush because they just expanded upon him because he was doing Republican policies.
I guess my point is, Clinton, like Reagan, knew how to, and Trump could have done it. He's just I don't know why Trump's Trump.
I don't think he could. I think Trump is very, he's used to running his own show.
But
and
he's a backslapper. Like, he's a schmooze talker. Like,
he is, but I think it's his way or the highway.
Well, and that's where
He's slapping something.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm.
Not with his hand.
Thanking you.
maybe,
Grab him by the.
Maybe he is. He's grabbing him by the. Yes. So it was that executive order was passed in 2009. Obama recognized it wasn't kind of the all-in that he wanted, or the LGBT community wanted. He said, hey, look, we've got more work to do to ensure that the government treats all its citizens equally, to fight injustice and intolerance and all in all its forms, and to bring about more perfect union. So that was kind of his stance. He recognized it was just the beginning, but there was a lot of work to do. And
I will say, any expansion of rights is good. However, I don't think oppressed minorities should say, we'll take that. That's good. We'll take that. because that slows down progress.
Well, I mean, that was my argument, though, like in 2009 to say, all right. And granted, I was kind of new to the LGBT community, so it wasn't like I didn't really appreciate kind of all the fight was for. I knew it was there, but I guess in my head, I assumed like gays were never going to be able to get married anyway. So it was just like, come on. So I took this as a win. But, there was a New York Times editorial op-ed that was written and said, because 2009, remember, the economy was in the tank. All sorts of things he had promised. Obama had promised health care, Guantanamo Bay. So their comment was the administration has had its hands full with the financial crisis, health care, Guantanamo Bay, and other pressing matters. And so they also said repealing the Marriage Act can seem like a distraction or a political liability, but busy calendars and political expediency are no excuse for making one group of Americans wait longer for equal rights.
Well, part of it is he didn't have the guts to do it.
Yeah.
Because you get into this whole mindset of, well, a president can't do that or else he will suffer blank, blank, blank. And look, I have my opinions about Trump, but he does whatever the hell he wants to do.
He
you
does.
know? And part of the reason
Whatever, just like he's like, tariffs on Mexico.
Right or
Yeah,
wrong,
let's do it.
but he does it. Whereas 99% of presidents are like, oh, I can't do that
You know
because I have 99 advisors telling me I'm not
You know
allowed
what's
to.
interesting about that? I feel like most presidents, like, they weigh all of this. Oh my God, I don't want to alienate any part of the electorate, whatever. Trump does whatever the fuck he wants, and he's still, like, I feel it's going to be a toss-up who wins the 2020 election. I don't think he's in a huge position of, so it's almost like just do whatever the fuck you want, because if you try to appease everybody.
But you lose all sorts of moral decency. Like, America has lost its standing as a moral.
no, I agree.
But
But I'm
you could
saying,
argue-
like,
We never had it.
Yeah,
in my
but, I
opinion,
mean,
but
that's what we hung on to.
it's
right?
harder for us to claim that.
But I feel if you kind of like
But it's never been
take
true.
a stand, like I guess Bernie Sanders, like he took a stand on certain issues versus, and there were Bernie or bust. They're like, I'll vote for Trump versus Clinton because Bernie's not the man.
Yeah.
And so, like, it doesn't have to be, like positions like Trump. It's just what Bernie believed. He's very,
Yeah.
he didn't care who he offended, and it rallied like his base.
I don't know.
He's something equally important, I have to say. I have a crush on Bernie Sanders. Yes, physically.
You love old men.
Physically.
What is with that?
What?
Yes.
Oh,
I will throw him on
That
a bed
is
of
a
leaves
whole
in
other
my front yard.
conversation.
I was about to say we're gonna have to save that for another time.
I don't want to gross out our
surprisingly,
I'll
listeners.
save it for Bernie.
Surprisingly, you didn't even talk about your crush for Barack.
You know what? Whatever. I was.
Did you have a crush on him?
I did have a crush on him, but then I was an EMT during his presidency, and I had a patient, I should say, that looked so much like him, and then I feel like I'm violating some HIPAA something, but his I saw his junk, and it was the nastiest, ugliest, ashiest, greasiest.
God.
So you just assume Obama's junk
4
would kinda
inches
look
of filth I've ever seen in my life.
flaccid.
And yeah, I mean, it was
Oh.
like 4 inches wide.
Wow.
Oh my God! Please
8 inches
move
long.
on.
Wow. We just get into.
And then
we're
I was
getting
like,
Tony
I can't
excited.
see Barack Obama without seeing that man's neither regions.
All right. So did you picture his neither regions with his shirtless pic from Hawaii on the beach? Was it?
Well,
the
that
full-
wasn't even cute.
The,
Like this 80-year-old man had a better body.
Gotcha. 80-year-old man.
So
All right.
why
so
not go for the true 80-year-old man, Bernie?
we have
There's just something about Bernie.
we have delved into
Wow. Okay.
to
Something
something.
about
This is like I said, like Tony said, for another episode.
Okay.
But I think we've rounded out that discussion on
Let's turn out something a little more wholesome.
on what started off as the executive order granting some same-sex benefits for the first time in American history to same-sex partners, to talking about Kendall's obsession with our sexual desires for Bernie Sanders. So way to go. Thank you for that. So, Tony, how about
okay, so
you
yeah,
save us here?
let's turn to something a little more wholesome and all-American. Before I actually talk about what I want to talk about, I would
Wholesome.
like to thank our sponsor, Economy Works, for sponsoring us and allowing us to do this. Economy Works is a freelance talent network that connects professionals with project work. So if you're a company that needs help with writing job descriptions, conducting market analysis, managing your social media platforms, Economy Works has an extensive talent network of freelance professionals ready to help you do more with less. So when economy works. When we work, the economy works. Okay, so turning to something a little more wholesome and all-American, Sally Ride. She was the first woman in space. I don't know how much you guys know about her. Obviously,
Give
not
us
a lot since.
not a lot, because I thought, and which is sad because the Challenger that went up in the sky.
He
like
thought she blew up.
I went to the school, Scobie, who was the commander at elementary school, and then so yeah, I should have known that, but I didn't.
Well, she actually.
That's why you whispered, and she went into space.
Yeah, because I.
But
was like,
if
she
well,
did go.
Christy McAuliffe never.
Well,
did.
it's interesting because she was the first woman in space,
and had a
she
lesbian
was,
affair with
she,
Krista McCullough.
She
Oh.
went up there in the Challenger. Her second mission was on the Challenger, and she was training for her third mission to go up in the Challenger when it exploded. So, yeah,
Oh,
yep.
So
So,
that's why.
if it wouldn't have exploded, she would have went after that.
gotcha.
But yeah, so she was the first one.
I think
she,
that was in. Was it? What one was that? 86.
When the Challenger exploded?
No.
Oh.
The
first woman in
when
space.
did she get in space?
83.
Okay.
Yep. So 83. So actually, she was just she was a PhD student studying physics, and she answered a newspaper ad. They selected her. Boom.
A
Yeah.
newspaper ad.
Yeah, and
Oh.
so it was 8,000 applicants.
Well, that's what you did back
Yeah,
then.
she was.
Well, yeah,
she was
but-
chosen.
Yeah.
She was also the youngest American ever to go to space. Yeah. at the
First
time.
woman, youngest American, and
Lesbian.
Lesbian.
So did you know that she was? Did you know she was a lesbian?
yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm
that's
talking
recent
about.
news, though.
Yeah. So that's what
I
I'm
mean,
talking
we all
about. Yeah.
guessed.
Yeah.
So did
when
you
we were
guys? That's
younger.
what because I knew Sally Ride. I just knew Sally Ride, first woman in space. That's pretty much all I knew about her until she had passed away, and that's really when it. I'm sure people that knew her, but
Well, Obama gave her the. Oh, that's right. Gave her partner the Medal of Freedom.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so I mean, I guess she was out to the people that she knew, right? Because she had a partner.
yeah, they were together for almost 30 years. It's interesting because she led a pretty. She just was very reserved about her personal life, and so she was actually offered movie deals and book deals, and she turned them all down because she didn't want to. And actually, President Clinton offered her twice, NASA administrator, and she turned it down. She just, after she was an astronaut, she basically really got involved with started some children's science programs back in California and stuff like that. But she actually, so it's interesting. So she was actually married to a man.
Oh, she was?
Yeah, she was a fellow
Oh.
astronaut in the 80s, and in true lesbian fashion, he must have been from Kansas because they got married in Kansas. She flew her own plane to her wedding
Nice.
in Kansas. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Huh.
But, yeah. She actually had a bit of a fame life about her. So she actually appeared in Touched by an Angel.
I thought she turned down movies. What kind of movies were they trying to get her in?
One appearance.
Gotcha.
But then two people.
She thought she was going to be touched by an angel. She
Oh,
thought it was
yeah.
a reality show.
Angel was a woman, a Latina woman, Angela.
Angela.
Tell me
Unfortunately, no.
her partner was Latina.
No.
Oh,
Oh, she's O'Shaughnessy, so she's Irish.
Irish.
Yeah. But she actually has her own spot on the moon. Yeah, so there were some satellites.
Did you say Poon?
Poon? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Kidding. But there were some satellites, and like when they were finished with their service, they crashed them into the moon, and they named it the spot where they crashed after Sally Ride.
Well, that's morbid.
That's a big.
Let's
Wait,
crash something
wha-
fiery blast.
They
and
crashed
name it
it
after
when she was alive or after? Like, when did she get her?
So she
Oh.
died.
That's
in
how she
20
died.
She died in 2012. I would say it's when she was alive that they did that.
So she had a hole named after her on the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it a deep hole?
Yeah.
Was it a dark
For our
hole?
lesbian listeners? Yes. You know what's interesting? So when
dark
she was,
No,
We don't have any lesbian listeners.
we have
But in all
one.
fairness, we,
we
don't have
do
any
have
gay
a lesbian
listeners either.
listener.
We have no gay listeners. We have no listeners. Not even moms. So that's.
We totally have a lesbian.
Kathy,
listener.
if you're listening, call in.
I personally know a lesbian that listened to
The
us
intern
this
is
week.
waiting.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah. What is interesting, so when she was chosen to be the first woman in space, People magazine interviewed her, and so this is early 1980s. They asked her if her reproductive organs would be affected by the space flight, and then they also asked her.
Did the magazine give her a spread? Kendall, I'm taking your jokes. You can have them back.
I would never make those jokes.
Right. They also asked her, "Do you cry when things go wrong on the job?"
Lesbians don't cry.
That's exactly what she said.
That was her response.
They have no tear ducts.
That's actually so. It's jarring to think back at some of those things. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they still ask women those things, but now everyone
Yeah.
like is.
They never asked any men,
Right.
"Are your reproductive organs going to be affected by this?"
Is your junk gonna work in space?
Well, I
Yeah.
would like to know though.
if your
That's
junk's gonna
questions.
work.
Yes, that's the kind of interview I want to hear about.
Well, like you can do anything like in space. You think about it, like there's a camera on you all the time. Like,
But would you ask the men? And I think they were asking, like, "Oh, a woman in space, are your reproductive organs going to be okay?"
what if she said no? So what?
Well, she wasn't going to use them anyway.
Wait,
When
did
I
she
was
had
in
a
fourth
kid?
grade-
Did she?
Okay, so I feel like
I don't
Sally
know.
Ride was a lot bigger when I was younger.
Her hair was bigger. Her hair was big,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
But
As all 80s and 90s.
but I feel like in the 80s there were less, like she was more popular because there were less women that were known as being like icons.
Yeah.
When I was in fourth grade, there was a wall of like historical figures, and it had like Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, Martin Luther King. It was all men, and it had little Sally Ride in a corner.
They didn't
And we
have
all knew
Susan B.
when she
Anthony or
reached into
anything?
space, and I could tell by the haircut she was a lesbian. But
You could at age 6.
yeah,
Remember in our intro episode, he was out since the C-section, so he had that gaydar going.
Right. But didn't all women in South Louisiana have that lesbian haircut?
well, here's a little known fact as a native. All women in South Louisiana are lesbians.
Oh, fun
Yeah.
fact.
Mhm.
We just outed all of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And they're Trump voters.
That's why they
Amazing.
smell like crawfish.
Huh. So that was it's interesting because I'm imagine Eleanor Roosevelt would have been on that wall too, and also
Or like
a
Susan B.
lesbian.
Anthony?
Yeah, was Susan B. a lesbian too?
No, but a hero.
She was rumored to be a lesbian.
Susan B.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm,
With no D. All right.
But growing up, the women were like Betsy Ross. She sewed a flag.
It's
Was she a
true.
drag queen?
She was.
I mean, there weren't that many. Yes, Eleanor, but Eleanor is famous because of her husband. But now I think we have a lot more, like Oprah. I believe I can run on. You know, that's how we know her.
Oprah. Who else?
What are you talking about?
Oh, God, we can't.
Closeted
It shouldn't
lesbians?
be that
I'm just
hard.
kidding. There are lots of
Are you
famous
talking
women.
about closeted lesbians?
No, just famous like role models.
Oh.
Michelle
Aunt Jemima.
Obama.
Mrs. Butterworth.
Hillary Clinton.
Clinton. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a lot of them. What's her name? She was secretary.
Mrs. Garrett from Facts of Life.
Secretary of State for Bush. Condoleezza.
Oh, Condoleezza Rice. Janet Reno.
Who
Yeah,
was the
Janet
Secretary
Reno.
of Bush?
Condoleezza Rice.
Secretary of Bush. I don't know. Karen Hughes.
Cunnilingus Rice.
Oh, she is so a lesbian. Karen Hughes.
She spoke at my graduation.
Did she?
From college?
And
Yep.
we've heard about it every day since.
Yeah. Was a big deal for me. I mean, I wasn't a fan of
Actually,
W.
maybe it was my inner lesbian coming out, but I do remember when Karen Hughes was working for Bush. I was like, I just liked her.
Yeah. Well, because so I graduated college in 2002, and this was right after 9/11. So it was like a big deal. Like this woman was like in on all of
Yeah.
the action. So it was fun, not fun, but it was interesting.
Well, it was all an
hearing the
act.
story.
She was a TV reporter.
Yeah,
So
she had
she
no
knows-
qualifications.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
she knows how to like put off the persona for you to like her. It's like Laura Ingraham, that horrible woman. I'll just say it here on the record, okay?
Compared to
I
all,
might wind up dead.
all of Trump's. Well, Trump keeps trying to nominate Fox hosts, but they can't get past the screening
No,
process.
when I was a flight attendant, in walks Laura Ingraham, and she's a lot shorter than you would think, onto the plane, and she instantly tried to make me like her. And she said, and first of all, she was standing in line because it was taking forever for people to sit. And she said, "Don't you just hate when it takes so long for them to sit down? All my flight attendant friends tell me they just hate how long it takes for passengers to sit down." Like trying to make me like her.
Was she talking
and
her
being one
news
with you,
voice?
she's like,
Yeah, like
we're one in the same.
I have flight attendant friends, so basically,
Yeah,
I know
I'm
who
down
you
with
are.
the flight attendants.
Yeah.
Like,
So I just
shut
punched
up,
her
bitch.
right in the vagina.
Oh,
She
Wow.
liked it, so I did it two more
Again.
times.
so people
Did she
some people
say,
grab
"Fist
them.
me, please"? Fist me, please.
Wow.
That's what I told her.
I'm not sure that's appropriate these days. But hey, if she
Well,
asks for
I
it,
lost my
Blur that
job
out.
because of it.
as opposed to like Trump, who says that you don't even have to ask them, then yeah, if she was asking for it, then I guess that's consent, huh?
She was
but
begging for
the,
it,
the
from what I hear.
Fox hosts the
Well,
one.
she's a Republican. Consent isn't required, she thinks.
Oh,
Exactly.
right. The government can decide.
And her body can shut it down if she's
Yes. right.
Yeah.
If my fist were to do anything,
That she didn't want
untoward,
to.
yeah.
Janine Pirro, that woman who's always yelling on Fox. I saw her, so I felt for a split second when they were when she was on The View and she got like torn apart by the host. Like I was like, oh, that was pretty intense. Like this woman's trying to promote a book and she just gets eaten alive there. So TMZ catches
We're
her.
talking about Sally, right?
No, I know, but TMZ catches her on the way to her car, and she's like, "Oh no, I don't mind. It's fine. It's fine." So she goes into her car, like her assistant goes into the car before she does, and she yanks her assistant out of the way. She's like, "Me first." And so I was like, "Oh, I don't feel badly for that woman at all. She's an awful person."
What?
But anyway,
Janine
see,
K-hole.
people we have to look up to. It all started with Sally Ride, I guess, though, huh? So any other fun tidbits about Sally? She passed in 2012, you said?
She did pass in 2012, yeah.
Did she have
Thomas,
kids?
when did you think she
And her
passed?
partner continues her legacy. So she had, as I said, after her astronaut thing, she went back to California, created a lot of science programs for middle school and grade school kids. And so her partner continues to do that her partner's also a scientist.
Oh, cool. Science nerds. I love a nerd.
Yeah.
Who wasn't a nerd?
Morky.
Morky.
But I think you're trying to get me to talk about Princess Di because I'm obsessed
Yes.
with this documentary on Netflix
Netflix?
about a book that was released this week, June 16th, 1992, I think. Yes. By Andrew Morton. Okay, so I don't know where to start because I'm so excited.
So who is that? Her butler?
So there was this book in 1992. No, he was just this random journalist that she
Okay.
trusted. But he came out with a book in 92, and it had so many scandalous revelations, like Princess Diana tried to commit suicide by throwing herself down the stairs, and she confronted Camilla, and she talked about her bulimia and her other suicide attempts. But the whole discussion at the time was, what is the palace insider that was like telling the world about this? Like, who spilled the beans, and could they be trusted? And was it the butler? Was it the maid? Was it somebody
this
in the
Clue?
royal family?
Because her butler knew everything about her, right? Like they were like tight.
It was her
Yeah.
gay BFF.
I was going to say, was he gay?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm just assuming he was a butler.
Ran British,
So it was scandalous, and the author at the time gave all these interviews about like, no, I promise you it's real. Trust me. Trust my sources. Fast forward, she's dead. Okay. Spoiler alert. And years later, he comes out and says she was the source all along, telling about her own life within
Really?
the palace and her own issues. And people were like, okay, girl, all right. But then he had the tapes. He had the receipts.
He had the receipts. I
So
feel like
they made
that's
a
wait,
documentary.
Can we thwarp that?
He,
I don't know how to thwarp it.
oh my God.
Jeez.
There was
There we go.
Thank
there
you.
was a documentary
Maybe
made
dispenser.
where basically the tapes were played, and she talks about her entire sad history from the very beginning. It's
life or the
fascinating. Well, of life, yes, but it's mostly about her sad life in the marriage and being a royal, and how poorly they treated her and all this and that. It's fascinating though, because it's like history, but it's history in their own word. Like we think of,
Yeah.
let's say, Henry VIII or
You think
whatever war or whatever, famous people. And here she is in like her own words talking about the things that were going on in the news that we had no clue about. It was fascinating.
Do you think you'll see a similar story about Meghan Markle?
Well, there will never
Or
be
what's
another
his name?
Princess Di. She was like, she did things. She humanized the royalty.
Well, yeah, and here's what I think the difference is. I think Princess Di, Charles never loved her. He always loved Camilla, and she was married, and his family was like, "It's time you get married." And so Diana was pretty good family.
She was
like,
young. She could
yeah.
bear children, they thought.
Yeah, but apparently he was pretty aloof from the beginning. But then once Harry was born, he was definitely just
He came across very poorly in the documentary. I've not read the book, but the documentary is based
Yeah.
on the book, and it's
No,
It's
he
sad.
it seems like a few years into the marriage, they just completely did their own thing. Whereas I feel Meghan Markle, it really is in love. I think they're really in love.
We'll see if that lasts, though. Not because they're not in
I'm
love,
not saying
but
it,
because
yeah, I don't know if it'll last or not.
all
but,
this
yeah.
pressure from the
Right,
press
but I
and
feel like
people
those
and-
two at least started off with, "Oh, we're in love," not
Versus
okay. It's
Charles
time to get
never.
married. Here's a woman from a good.
Well, do
family
y'all
who's really
remember when
pretty.
Prince William was the cute one and Harry was the ugly one? My, how the tables have turned.
Yes.
Thinking.
Although,
I agree.
I mean, I think Harry's starting to lose his luster. He's getting a little older.
Well, he's getting cranky now.
and he's losing some of his hair, which is fine with the bald man. But it's like he had that, in his 20s, he had that, look of a prince, and now it's like, oh, you're a 30-something-year-old man. So
Yeah.
Remember his nude photos in Vegas? Well, his butt photos.
I was about to say there was no,
Trust me, I would have found them.
and I do love a ginger. So.
But he had one of those tiny butts that was basically a gaping hole with two cheeks on it, like little.
Did he not have a butt? It's just back was
gosh.
connected to his legs.
Yeah, it was just like
White people.
you could play cornhole with it.
The corn. Oh, that sounds
We
like
got
that's not a
cornhole
game
board.
I'd want to play. with
Exactly.
I played with
someone's
Harry.
Cornhole.
Thinking you.
Mm-mm. So Harry was Charles. What's the scandal there? Was that part
I
of the
kind of wonder that because he doesn't look like.
his dating?
Okay, so
well,
here's another thing about that.
tell.
Princess Diana
Spill the tea,
had
girl.
an affair right around the time she got pregnant with a very redhead, hot polo player that looks a
There
lot
you
like
go.
him.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I think.
That wasn't part of the documentary. She didn't spill the beans. There?
No, I mean
Spill
the
the tea.
documentary is not going to be her talking about all the horrible things she did. She had lots of affairs, and she was not a saint. But it's her side of the story. If it were, what's his name's Charlie the horse, Prince Charlie, it'd be a different documentary. But you know who came across as just nasty, gross is
The Queen.
Camilla.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, desperate, like clingy, and it was like her point the entire time to be with Charles.
As told through Princess Di, though.
Yeah, but it sounds very trustworthy. I mean, hello, they wound up together.
But and actually, I actually watched a documentary.
Was it on Netflix?
It was not on Netflix.
Netflix.
But so, Princess Di and Charles were married. He had always loved Camilla, and so it was, and their marriage was kind of,
Open.
they were just
Well, she was married at the time.
they
Right?
kind of had, yeah, she was, and they had independent lives. So it was Camilla's birthday, and she found out that Charles was going to go to Camilla's birthday, and so Diana thought, well, I'm going to go to this birthday. And so she went up. It was at a 2-story place. She went upstairs, and Charles and Camilla were sitting there, like, holding hands, like, lovey-dovey. Camilla's married at the time. Charles is married to Princess Diana. And she basically said, why are you doing this? Like, this is my husband. Why are you? And she kind of looked at her like, what does it matter? Like, you have kids, you have money, it doesn't matter.
She
We're
said you
doing
have
this."
everything you could possibly ever want.
Yeah, like, what does it matter?
Princess Di was asking Camilla. that?
Camilla. And
So that's
Camilla's
how
like,
she confronted Camilla.
yeah,
at
she
this
said,
party.
why are you with my husband? Why are you doing this? And she's like, yeah, you could have anything you ever want. You have kids, money.
Is that
doesn't
what
matter."
inspired the Brandy Monica song? That boy is mine. Ooh, that boy is mine.
Why do you always have to bring it back to 90s R&B?
Because that's where life is. That's where everyone should be all the time.
So in the documentary, she talks about
Anyways.
when she confronts Camilla. That's like the beginning of
Oh, she
Princess. That's like the beginning of the Princess Di that we all know, like the confident, independent. I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna leave my husband type. Because before then, she was incredibly insecure, bulimic, depressed, didn't want to get out of bed, couldn't stop crying. And then there was something about that night she said that was like, no, I'm gonna take back my life, my marriage, and be strong from now on.
Well, I do remember.
Fascinating. You all have to listen to it.
I do remember the documentary I watched in the latter years. She would tell paparazzi and things like that. She's like, "Hey, I'm going to be out on like Dodie's boat this weekend," and so they would, because
Why?
she wanted to drum. I think she wanted to stick it to the royal family.
Oh.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, Dodie was sticking it to her.
yeah.
Huh. I don't. I mean,
And
she
her
was
Dodie.
and her dirty doty. Like people, so like, was she revered as like a sex symbol when she was alive? Like I never saw.
Yeah.
Like, there was that look
I
that.
think
Well,
so.
she's British, so
Yeah.
the bar is low.
She had, all she
But
all
I
she has to
thought
do
she
is
was very
talk.
pretty. I thought she was very classy, and she was very. I thought
She had charisma.
Yeah, she was very pretty, but she was very down to earth. Like she was the. Like I think the royal family had an issue when she said, "No, my children will go to public school. Like I'm not gonna, send them to private school or just have tutors." I feel she was.
The gays always loved her.
Why?
Yes.
What's just because she was a strong woman?
Here's my theory as an older gay gentleman.
Oh, so old.
She was an outsider. She was a vulnerable person. She had a lot of people against her, yet she persevered, even though she was vulnerable and weak at the same time. And she did things her own way without hiding how damaged she was, which I think is what a lot of gay people can identify with.
Yeah, I do. I feel she was an outsider, and she just, for a while, she was vulnerable or whatever, and then she was just like, "Fuck this," and I'm just gonna live my life. And she was. I do feel like she was the people's princess, right? Like she sent her kids to public schools. Like she went. I remember when she went to Africa to learn about the landmines, and they were like, "You could get killed out here," and she's like. And I also remember a reporter said, "Oh my God, like you're here, but your government supports like the opposition to the whatever." And she's like, "Are you kidding me? Like people are dying out here with these landmines. Like what do I care? What this is not a political statement." She was really offended.
Well, another reason why I think she was an icon, especially back in the day, 80s and 90s and before, the gays had to look. There were very few gay champions, so you had to look for little clues. This is why I think Judy and Madonna were huge at the time. You had to look for little clues, as in like, oh, she's okay with us. She likes us. She would be friends with us. She wouldn't be disgusted by us. And you had that in the very early 90s when she went to the AIDS ward in London and hugged them. And back then, you didn't know.
Yeah,
if
exactly
you didn't know
right,
how
yeah.
you got it.
Yep.
So for her to do that was revolutionary at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why I feel she was like very human, right?
And she knew what she was doing. She was
yeah.
super smart.
And that's the thing. I feel she did know what she was doing.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that earlier. If she was calling the
Yeah.
paparazzi, I mean, that's that.
Yeah.
Although that's Trumpian.
Well,
to
she
some
said that
extent.
in the she said that in the documentary. She was like, "No longer will I be used by the paparazzi. I will use this platform that I cannot escape to do some good with it." But speaking of paparazzi, so when she died, it was in 1997, I think.
It
and
was,
my
yeah.
mom and I were watching in my room, like all the coverage. And no one knew back then what paparazzi. The paparazzi was not a common word.
Yep.
So I ran into my dad's bedroom and said, "Dad, Princess Di's dead, and the paparazzi killed her." And he shot up in bed and said, "The opera singer?" Pavarotti.
Pavarotti.
And he slapped his forehead and said, "My God!" And of course, we made fun of him, told he was stupid. He cried a little bit, feels dumb to this day. But
Bless
you
his
know
heart.
what? He should have known.
Bless his heart.
Bless his little
His son was
heart.
gay. He should know what the paparazzi is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's one of our
overall, what do you
favorite
think
words.
of Princess Di? You're
Love her.
me too.
Love her, even with all her faults. Because she was a little bitchy, but she was human.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, she was, and I also watched. I don't know if it was a movie or a documentary, but it was about after she had left Charles and she had her own house and everything, and she dated this doctor, and he was, I can't remember, he was from Pakistan, I think, but he just didn't want the limelight. Like he wanted to help people, and that was it. And he just couldn't stand, as much as she tried to not have the limelight at that time. And I think, part of her, she was like, that's what I want too, but then part of her wanted the limelight. But I felt kind of sad for her because I honestly think deep down part of her wanted that kind of a lifestyle where, yeah, I just want to come home to this doctor every day. But then part of her is like, no, I want the limelight,
Well, there's no turning back. It's hard to turn
Right.
back. From
Yeah.
that.
The fame.
But then
monster.
I feel like any famous person probably sometimes feel like, I remember Sheryl Crow one time she was being interviewed, and somebody said, if you could because she said, oh, if I could just give all this up, and like if I found the right person, I would just give all this up and everything.
It seems like she did.
Well,
Just
temporarily.
saying. Where is she?
She's
No, I think she just
yeah.
phased away.
I mean,
but
that
she
was
died
20 years ago.
at the time when she was big, they said, "Oh yeah, I remember you saying like, oh, if you could find the right guy, you would give all this up." And she goes, "Oh, did I say that?" Kind of like, I don't know if that's true.
Know what she'd also said? Every day is a winding road.
Every day is
You know what else? You know what that reminds me of?
Oh no.
I believe I can run home.
So we've come full circle. Yes, haven't we? All right.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a good way to round it out. Oh, we had a good discussion. I think we're going to have to come back to Princess Di because, I mean, today we were marking the fact that this bombshell book was released this week.
Watch the documentary sponsored by Netflix.
Back in 1990. When was it released?
92, June
92.
16, 92.
Yeah, so that was a bombshell thing. And so, but we're going to come back. I mean, we'll have to honor her birthday.
There are a
and her
lot
death.
of Princess Di topics.
Yes,
to be
so we
discussed.
don't want to go all in here.
And for those of you that are wondering when we're going to talk about Oprah again, her birthday is June 29th. So you
And I
will
was
have
like,
to-
it's on my
Yeah.
calendar.
Okay,
Whether it's a
talk about
topic or
that,
not, I'm
and-
talking about it.
He'll be talking about it anyway. We might just have him do his own mini-sode so he can just talk about Oprah all by himself. I think he could
Web
fill about 2
series.
hours, and I'm pretty sure you guys would be thoroughly entertained. I know I would. All right, well, I think that that's good discussion for the week. I mean, we hit on some fun topics. We got a little political with what started off as an Obama discussion and the executive order he passed to grant same-sex benefits to same-sex couples, or at least partially. We talked about the first astronaut, lesbian in the to go into space. She was also the first woman and the
First
youngest
woman,
and the
youngest
youngest. So
American.
not
Yeah.
just the
And
gay
the first
thing.
lesbian.
And we
And if you want to know who this Morky is that I keep talking about, go to Instagram at Let's Talk About Gay Stuff.
Yeah, do that.
And she's there
She's
on
in
her back,
every-
You know, speaking
enticing
of
us.
Instagram, we're also on Facebook at Let's Talk About Gay Stuff and Twitter at Talk Gay Stuff. Where else can you find us?
Let's talk about gaystuff.com.
Cruising.
We can find us cruising, or at least Tony.
Buffalo Bayou.
At
Tony.
Buffalo Bayou. On the website, let's talk about gaystuff.com. You can also subscribe. Well, you should be subscribing, hopefully, to wherever you listen to your podcasts. iTunes, Google Podcasts. We're there on 9 different platforms, I
And
think.
shout out to all of our regular listeners. We love you.
We appreciate it. We got
And
some
our
good feedback.
irregular listeners.
Yeah, we don't discriminate. We support all of regularities and irregularities, and maybe one day we'll get Depends to sponsor the podcast.
Right now, our regular
Oh.
listener is Kathy Smith, our intern's mom.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
I'm the audio engineer.
Also, we'll give a shout out to our friends at Our Spoopy Podcast. They have 6-7 episodes running and quite hilarious. The boys have a good chemistry. It features none other than our sound engineer Spencer and his partner in crime Chris. So take a listen to what they have to offer. So with that said, we're here.
We're queer.
Get used to it. I believe I can run home.